Hello and welcome, everybody. It is so good to see the world represented in the Codaverse today. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Maria Marquis, and here at Coda, I consider myself the Chief Cheerleading Officer. So I love to just support people as they're learning Coda, as they're growing in Coda, taking some time to create spaces where we can all learn together, hang out, nerd out, and hopefully leave with learning a couple new things and feeling really good. So that's a little bit about me, but lucky for all of you, I'm joined by my fabulous colleague, Steve. Steve, do you want to introduce yourself to the group so they can learn a little bit about you and how you connect to Coda?
Yeah, of course. Hey, folks, I'm Steve Wan. I'm on the design team here. My team and I focus on designing better experiences for teams, monetization, and enterprises. So we've been a part of designing a number of exciting areas, including the doc lists. If you use Coda with Slack, Slack integration, the Chrome extension, and many others, including the custom templates feature that we just rolled out.
Yes. So if there's a feature you love, chances are Steve and his team are behind it. And I'm really excited to sit down with Steve because today we're going to go through the custom templates feature, how to get started with it, but also have a little bit of time to learn a little bit more about where this feature came from. So all of you can kind of come into the meeting room, as it were, to figure out, how did this feature come to be? What's our thought process as we're making new things as well? Hey, I love it. It's amazing. I agree. I am super excited about it. I'm using it all the time now. And I didn't even realize how much I needed it until Steve and his team were like, hey, here it is. So just a little bit more information about how to get in touch with all of us today. Oh, Steve, you stopped sharing your beautiful video. I need to see your face. I miss you already. So for those of you who are trying to figure out how do we sort of get together, what do we do here today, and how to sort of get in touch, there's a few things to know. First, over along the right side of your screen, it looks like I just need to grab Steve again, invite them back on the screen. There we go. Beautiful. Here we go. Over there on the right, a lot of you have already found it, which is the chat field. You can go ahead and type whatever is on your mind over there. That is an open area. It is public, so just keep that in mind. That's our public chat. Feel free to post comments, ideas, emotional outbursts, whatever you want over there in chat. Now, if you have a question, since we are a big group today, Steve and I would ask that you just click on the Ask a Question button along the bottom of the screen, because that's going to be the place where Steve and I can manage it. Now, you can post your questions there. You can also see the other questions that have been posted and upvote or downvote them so Steve and I can focus on the most pressing questions first. There's no such thing as an interruption here in our session today. It is all about you and your questions. We definitely want to hear from you. So just to make sure that everybody knows how to find chat, I'd love for you to just go over there on the right side of your screen, give us on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being I'm brand new to Coda, maybe you haven't even logged in yet. 3 being, I feel pretty confident, I'm making some cool stuff. And 5 being, sit down, Maria, it's my turn to lead this webinar. Where do you think you are in your Coda skills today? So give us a scale of 1 to 5. All levels are welcome here today. It's just helpful for me and Steve to know kind of where are folks at. So give us on a scale of 1 to 5, where do you think you are? Beautiful, Miranda's at a 3, nice, perfect, Aaron as well. Love it, we've got lots of 3s in the house today. Lovely, 2-ish, yes, of course. Hey, a 4, love it, Connor. Nice to see you. Great. 1. Hey, welcome, Kelly. Good to have us all starting out. Cara, I appreciate the precision with the 3.5. Some 1s here today. Perfect. 3.14, 5.9. And I forget more of the pi there. I just eat pie instead of using it in math a lot. Radiuses can wait. My stomach cannot. Beautiful. All right. Great, folks. So just know that that is your direct line of communication. So I noticed there's already some questions that have been posted, but before we get to those, I just want us to sort of introduce this feature first, and then we'll start moving through that. So I'm going to go ahead, share my screen. If you all could give me a beautiful yes, no, I can see it. Hey, Maria, your screen looks so amazing. Where can I get one of those? Let me know when you can see it just by posting to chat. Let us know, can you see the behind the building blocks, custom templates, Coda doc here? Just give me a yes or a no. All right. Excellent. Fabulous. Beautiful. Thank you, Miranda. I appreciate it. So we've covered the first part, which is who are these fine folks? That's Steve. That's me. And that's my dog, Ned. He's not here right now, but he loves Coda for sure. Has been my witness to making many a doc here today. I love it. Perfect. So let's really first start off with figuring out, how does custom templates work? So at the most basic level, you can save an existing Coda doc that you've built as a template. So you can use it over and over and over again. Then when you go and create a new doc, you can start from a blank page, or you can choose to start from one of your templates. For example, if you have a project type that you use over and over again, you can just start from that as a template instead of having to go through, copy, paste, make it all over again. This template can also be added to existing docs. So maybe you've created kind of a little widget or a mini sort of usage, and you want to be able to use that across different docs that you're building. You can do that as well. The other thing that I love about what Steve and his team have done is they've made it so that you can see how your team is using the templates that you've built, so that you can know, hey, is this popular? Is this being used? Is this not being used? Does it matter? So you get that sort of pulse there as well. Now, if we think about what is the type of Coda doc that should be turned into a template, anything that you are constantly rebuilding, anything that you know, I got to do that thing again. Anytime you're having to do that copy paste, if it's happening a lot, it's a great signal that this might be a really good template, because we could all use a little bit more time in our day. So why do it rebuilding something when you can just have it be a template instead? Also, if there's a set of actions that you repeat, maybe you have the same conditional formatting across certain tasks or the same kind of flow, anytime there's that similarity, then that's a great sign that a template should be built. We also recommend that templates be lightweight, because usually if we think about repurposing, you probably don't need all the bells and whistles every single time, but really finding what is the core, what is that kind of center that everything needs to do. Steve, anything else that you would recommend as far as a great template candidate or things that folks should be looking for in their docs to let them know, ooh, it's time for me to try out this feature?
Yeah, I think that's a really great list. Maybe one thing to add could be if there's like a way you want your team to build out a doc or work through something, a template would be a great way to spread that across everyone in your workspace, and then having people adapt and evolve it together over time.
Ooh, I love that, Steve, that this can be a way to kind of get those folks on your team on board, because they don't have to go through everything from scratch. You can say, hey, this is the new process. And then I love what Steve mentioned about then taking it and letting them evolve from there. I didn't even think about kind of that compliance piece, but that's so important because folks are, again, busy and tired. So how can we make it easy for them to follow the process? That's beautiful. So as Steve and I were chatting before this around kind of what are some things that folks should keep in mind, some potential gotchas that folks should be aware of. The first thing to keep in mind is that templates that have multiple pages are only available when you create a new doc. You can't drag and drop them into existing. That's the current state right now. And then templates that you create are discoverable by your entire workspace. And if we think about what a workspace is, that's over here on the left side of your doc list, right? This is a workspace. If I make a template inside of it, that means it's going to be visible to everyone inside of that workspace. Steve, anything else that folks should keep in mind as they're getting started, kind of words to the wise that you might share beyond these two that we've mentioned?
I think these are great. And on your just adding on to your first point around templates that are multi-page only being available when you're creating a new doc, we're also looking at bringing that support inside the doc as well. That in the future, when you have a multi-page template, you can also use that via Slash or through drag and drop.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And one thing that I do want to highlight is, this is like many Coda features, this is the first time it's out in the world, and we are always wanting to hear from you. So all of you letting us know, how are you using it? What would make it better? Please do let us know. We take your feedback very seriously. It doesn't just go into, a warehouse in the back, like, all right, Indiana Jones it, right? We're not doing that. We actually take it very, very seriously and look at it very closely. So this is kind of the first go. And I know Steve and his team are going to be moving forward and continue to have that kind of move forward. Yes, Steve has given me a plus 100. So the best way for us to make this feature better is to understand, how are you currently using it? What's missing? And how do you envision it fitting in your workflow? That's going to be just absolute gold to help Steve and his team really figure out where to go from there. I want to take a little break here and go to some of these questions that are coming through before we see how it's kind of looking at how we actually do it in the future. Great question here from Gregory, Steve, which is, are there any plans to create custom templates that backlink to Crosstalk with edit privileges? Any thoughts on this, Steve?
Yeah, thanks for this question. This is one of the use cases that we've been observing and hearing a lot about since we've started the beta program at the beginning of the year. So this is definitely one of the top things that we're looking at as one of the things to build on top of the MVP that we just shipped. So we're still working out the specific plans for it, but stay tuned. We'll share more updates in the community or through one of our channels once we do have this support.
Totally. Excellent. And Steve just called out a really important thing that if y'all are not on the community, which is community.coda.io, I'll post that over there in chat. It is such a great place to hang out with other users, to ask questions, to share ideas, and also get the most up-to-date announcements from us. Also, if any of you ever want to be part of a beta test to give us feedback on early features, the community is where we announce it. So definitely take a look at that there. I love this. I'm actually going to answer this question, which is there are a lot of great features coming at a fast pace. Are there any plans on expanding the tiny formula editor UI? It's for the Coda formula language is super powerful, but that editing is very small. I have great news for you. Yes, I've actually been testing it. It's internal right now. I'm really excited about it. We're also doing a couple other things to the formula builder to make it even more delightful to use. So I love when I can just say yes, and it's coming very soon. Yes, great. All right, let's see. We've got another question here, and then we're going to go and take a look at the demo, which is there a plan for there to be private templates that can be created that are not viewable by the entire workspace? Steve, do you want to talk to this aspect here?
Yeah, I can take this one. So Bryce, right now there is a way for you to create a template that is only private to you. I'm curious, do you mean having a private that's going to be viewable and available to a specific group of people, or just yourself?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Bryce, feel free, post to chat. What is your definition of private? Just for you or just to a select group of people? We'd love to know. And then Steve, in the meantime, feel free to speak to kind of whichever method we're thinking about right now.
Yeah. So while Bryce shares more thoughts, we started out with two ends of the spectrum right now. One is something that is very just private for your own workflow, your own repetitive patterns. So you can create that right now. So if you create that, you have a chance to select between make this template available to the workspace or private, and that would determine how it shows up. And then the other is something that your entire team would benefit from and find discoverable, which is the other spectrum. We're also evaluating like a middle point, somewhere in between there. Something that we've also learned from the beta testing from our users, echoing Maria's earlier point that we really are keen on what our users share back with us. We've noticed that especially in large organizations or large teams, there may be a number of different teams within the same organization. And sometimes you might want to create a template that you might not want to have discoverable to hundreds or thousands of people in your company, because that may only be relevant to your own team or to a subset of the company. So that is another item that we're actively looking into, along with the crosstalk question earlier on, as something to build on next.
Cool. And we actually have a follow-up from Pearl on this question, which is, would it be possible to be private to a private folder? At this point, it sounds like templates are just at the workspace level. Is that correct?
Yep. That is. And I just saw, I think, Bryce's response. And yeah, the former is available right now, Bryce. And the latter hopefully would be something that we get to build in soon.
Awesome. Great. Perfect. So we're going to go ahead, pause here on those questions, keep them coming. We're going to take a look now at a demo, but again, add those questions. We want to know what's on your mind, and today is about you, and we'll come back to those in just a moment. So let's imagine that I have this really great doc. And it's this one-on-one meeting template. And those of you who've attended some of our past webinars, this will look pretty familiar because we talked about one-on-ones as a ritual a few weeks ago, I believe. Karina can tell me when, because Karina's always here, which I love. Love you, Karina. You're my favorite. So let's imagine that I've built this really great template that I want to start using for one-on-ones because it has all of the things, like Steve was saying, that I want people to be doing. But I want to make it really easy for people to succeed. So what I can do if I want to have this be a template is I can just click on that ... and I can choose make this doc into a template. I just give that a little click right there. And then I can say, great, do I want to create a copy of this doc? Or do I want to convert this doc? Now, Steve, can you talk a little bit about the differences between these two choices so folks can be aware?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first choice, create a copy of this doc, leaves the original doc as is. And makes a new copy into the templates draft. The reason why we added this option in is we realized that usually people find a pattern that they want to reuse or find effective in a current project that they're working in. And this allows you to turn that piece into a template without creating a stop to the project you're working on.
Yeah.
Sometimes you start out a new doc with the intent of making a template. So in that case, we give the option to convert the doc itself into a template. And once you do that, the doc will no longer be visible from the doc list, and it'll start appearing within the templates settings page so that you get to view it, edit it, and modify it as a template instead of a regular doc.
Nice. So, Steve, would it be fair to say the difference here is this is like save as, and then convert is like save? If we're thinking about, yeah, cool.
Perfect metaphor.
Oh, great. I'm so glad that my metaphor engine is working. Love it. So I think for this one, I'm going to create a copy of this doc, because if we think that I've been using this for my own one-on-ones, I probably want to make a net new one. So I'm going to go ahead, choose create. And then the magic of Coda happens behind the scenes. Now we have this template. So I love that we've got a little bit of helper text down here as far as things to think about for getting better, right? These are some of the things that we chatted about already. The idea of making sure we keep it simple, making sure that it's really something we're always rebuilding. And then we can always do that subtitle to make sure that people know what this is for, which is why I've got that going on here. So now we're in draft mode. So this is what Steve was talking about. I could make changes here. I could change the colors. I could strip out any of my existing information, kind of do a bit of a scrub. And then when I'm ready, I can just go ahead and click on this publish button here. Steve, any recommendations you would give to folks before they publish? Anything that folks should be thinking about that I haven't mentioned?
So a couple of things I think we mentioned earlier on. If you want this doc to be usable as well inside a doc for drag and drop or such, it would be great to find a way to combine these into a single page. If not, this all works. We found that most of the templates that people create and have been using have been pretty lightweight. But sometimes people have filler data in there as well. So if you have a filler data in there, it's always helpful to add like a clear data button that could help the user get started on this template and then be easily replace that with their own data.
Yeah, awesome, great. So I'm going to press publish, and now I can decide who can use it. So this is going to be in the workspace, and then private. This is something that is for just you, and you just want to make sure that the visibility is clear. I also like that we have when can this template be used. This is kind of cool where you can decide, great, I want this to be for creating a new doc and adding to an existing doc. Again, this one only works right now if it is a single page template. That's a temporary stat. And then maybe I just want it to be one we're creating or just adding to existing. So this kind of lets you figure out when would people be needing to use this, so you never give people a cluttered view of all the things that are going on. Any other things that you would say that should be called out on this particular page, Steve, for folks?
No. And just to add on to what Maria just shared, when you have the option to create a new doc, where this would allow this template to show is in two different places. In the doc list, there's a new doc button that you can click that shows up a pop-up of different things you can start off from. So this would make this template show up in that dialog. So there's a new doc button usually.
Oh, yes. Here we go.
If you go to, there we go, yeah. That would allow the template to appear here. And if when you go to all docs in the doc list, you'll see a row of different templates that have been added across your workspaces in the future as well. It would be in all docs in your doc list.
Cool. All docs. So that would be...
we've renamed it to home.
Oh, cool. Oh, it's nice to see that. So it'd be under home right here.
Yes.
And I would be like, great. Here are all of the templates that we currently use here at Coda. Very cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Excellent. So let's go ahead and publish this little baby. Go ahead, choose publish. That's now happening. It's now ready. So here's a couple cool things that I can do. Number one, we have a couple little things around education. So the first time you create it, you can see how it works. But I also like that you can copy this link. So I could copy this link and then post it to Slack or send it out in an email to my team, right? So that everybody can now have the new thing, be aware that it exists, which I think is a really smart thing that Steve and his team have done. Now, here inside of our workspace, we can have this templates area. And now what I can do is I can see, we can make a new template. I see who created it. I can see how many copies were made. And this is now just our space to be able to work through. Any other things around this templates page, Steve, that folks should know about, or things that you're really excited about in particular?
Yeah, maybe two things. You might be in the middle of editing a template, but have not published it yet. Where that will appear is under the draft tab. There we go. Maria has a couple magical ideas she's building up right now.
They're untitled. They're just that good.
Yeah. Maybe could we go back to the template you just published, Maria?
Oh, sure.
If that's okay.
Right here.
If you click on it, there should be an edit button below.
Right here.
Great. Awesome. So sometimes the changes that you're making to the template is quite quick knits or polishes. So it might be okay to make those changes on the go, but sometimes you might need to make a major change or restructure the template in a big way. In that case, there's an unpublished button up on top. If you want to try clicking on that, boop. What that does is now the template is no longer discoverable from the entry points that you've selected, and it'll now appear back in the drafts tab, so that whenever you're ready to reshare it back out, it'll be available then. I think if you reload, it should show up. Yep.
A little bit of refresh action. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Excellent. And then I can just come back in, choose edit again. And then when I'm ready, I've done all my structure changes. I can go ahead and click publish, change things up. Cool.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And one thing I do just want to call out is, again, I love this feature of seeing how many times it's been copied. Being able to know, is this something that's really valuable? How's that working, right? I just think that's a really fun little addition to just let you know and have that community bit here. Also notice when we click on that, expanding it out, we have all access to all of those different publish settings that we saw before, right? We can change who can edit it, we can change when it can be used, and we can also choose to hide it for ourselves as well. And we can also preview, which I think is really valuable, to be able to be like, oh, what was that thing again? Oh yeah, it's this one. I really like this one, right? And we get the statistics and everything else here. Now, the other thing that we can do is, this was a multi-page template, but we can also publish smaller scale templates as well that are just one page, and then be able to access them inside of Coda. So I'm going to go ahead and head back to my little Coda, my meetings here. I'm going to create a new doc. Here, again, is where I could see all of the different templates that we currently have, right? We can have all of that accessed here. I'm going to choose to just start with a blank page in this case. And notice one of the options we have over here is templates to get started quickly. And this is where we would see not only the Coda templates, but also all of the templates that are one-pagers that are currently in my workspace. And I can go ahead and pop them over. Also my private templates. So here I could drag and drop my beautiful untitled one over and then automatically add it here. That was a blank doc, so nothing is showing up, but you get that idea. The other thing is, maybe you're not into the whole mouse thing. You're like, no mouse ever. You can always just go / and go to templates as well and get it from here. So it's a way, again, for you to have that access, not only from the very beginning, but also at any point in your doc flow. Steve, anything else that we should be showing folks before we again shift back over to questions? There's lots of things coming through which I definitely want to make some time for.
Let's see, what would be interesting to share in the top? Cool. Is the rest of the session would be around questions and answers?
Yeah. Unless there's anything else that we think we should show, if I've missed anything in showing off the feature and how it works. Otherwise, we can just switch over to questions.
No, I think this is great.
All right, excellent. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but it can always come back. So let's go ahead and take a look at questions. So here we go. Is there a shortcut and or quick way to remove data when templating? Ooh, this is a really good question, Karina. I have a thought, but before I share it, Steve, I'll kick it over to you. Anything that you and your team have discovered that makes that process really much easier?
That is a great question. Something that we've talked about in the beginning when we started this podcast off was how do we beautify? Or I think to borrow Maria's comment earlier, how do we scrub the data off? Because that always feels like an important part of the process. It's something that we've always thought about, something that felt valuable, but haven't made it into the MVP that we just shipped. So something that's on our mind, and hopefully we could try integrating it as part of the workflow.
Yeah. I would say, Karina, my one recommendation, Steve is correct, but if you have table data, I would add a button that then deletes rows. So I would add a button column to a table that deletes the row, and then I'd add one button in the canvas that pushes all those buttons to delete the rows, and then just remove those out. That would be my recommendation for table data. Otherwise, at this point, it is a little bit more manual. Yeah, great question. So let's see. We've got another question, which is, what is the long-term plan for Crosstalk? Now, Steve, I forget, is your team the one that manages Crosstalk, or is that another team? Because in this case, we may not be able to speak to it. I forget.
Yeah, I think that's another team who's looking into it. I think in terms of how it relates to templates shared a bit earlier on, I think if it's more around Crosstalk itself, I think it might be good to relay the question to the team.
Yeah. So in this case, the way that we organize our teams here at Coda is around a couple different categories. So we have the doc experience, which are folks who are working on the in-doc, which I believe they're the ones managing Crosstalk. We have Steve and his team thinking about kind of the sort of the top of how we think about publishing, how we think about allowing people to monetize on top of Coda. And then we also have a couple other organizations inside. So in this case, Steve won't be able to speak to that because he's not in the meetings about it. But I would say if you have specific questions about Crosstalk, let us know, and then we can go ahead and make sure that the team gets the look at it. In this point, what I can tell you is that our team is now thinking about how can we really make Crosstalk more delightful, more streamlined for larger organizations. So that's what I can speak to, but that's about all that I know. Yeah, of course. Great question. Pearl has a question. Would it be possible to edit the template after publishing? So that's what Steve was talking about, the idea that you can always click on it, choose that unpublish, and then make some changes. Glad we're able to cover that there. We have a question here, which is, are there any plans for creating a column template? For example, to set the default values, formatting, formula, etc. Always resetting the currency and the decimal point and the date formats can be a little bit slow. And duplicate column is a cool addition, but there's no way to copy it to another table. Any thoughts about this, Steve? Like a column template.
Yeah. I think I can speak to it more from the template end. Like Maria mentioned earlier, we have a team called Doc Experience working on the in-doc experience. We have a team called LED working on publishing in the gallery. And then we're in BizPlan working on things that we mentioned earlier on. But something that we have been seeing adopted on at least the personal workflows is there's a certain set of ways that people want to set conditional formatting in the different tables that they have, and different ways that they want to style. And we've started seeing private templates get created and used so that at least it cuts away at maybe like 4 or 5 different actions that you would have had to take, and if you were to create a template from scratch. So that would be a suggestion on how template could help here. Yeah. I'm sure the team's thinking about ways to make the table experience better as well. I'm less familiar with the latest and the greatest there.
Yeah, and my thought would just be to have one column, right? Like create a one column table with the adjustments that you make, and then use that, and then you can always expand on it. That would be my recommendation. Yeah. Excellent. Let's see. We've got one thing I find very helpful in templates is placeholder fields. Is this something that will be looked at as a text formatting option? That's interesting. Any thoughts on this, Steve?
Got it. Love to learn a bit more. What are some of the examples that you're thinking about, Nicholas?
Yes, please let us know, Nicholas.
Yeah. Love hearing these kind of feedback as well, so that helps us think about what will be more helpful for our users afterwards.
Yeah, I will say something, if I'm thinking about the templates that we've built internally, Steve, sometimes people will just add in like the text fields like a enter the names here, and then like bold it and format it so that when you pull it in, it looks like a placeholder, even though there's no special code behind it. But that's something that I'm thinking about. But Nicholas, let us know if there's anything else that you're thinking about there, and then Steve can definitely speak to that. Yeah. This is a cool question. The Coda formula language is elegant. What is the inspiration/story behind it? Steve, I want to say that Matt wrote a blog post about this.
I think so.
I might be incorrect, but I want to say that Matt Hudson, who is one of the very early employees at Coda, who's still here, wrote a blog post about it. Let me go ahead and make a note to check on that. But one of the things that I know from my own experience of being on the receiving end is they wanted it to be both approachable to Excel folks and also have a little bit of like the programming side of the house, so that no matter kind of which type of formula your entry is, it could be something that you work through. And they wanted to make sure that it was something that was approachable for folks who may not have those. So that's why the dot operator is so present in our formula language. For those of you who are new, the dot operator is a fancy way of saying the period in between different Coda phrases. And what it means is it's like, and then it shows a step, and it allows you to pull things out. But let me go ahead afterwards. I will post to the chat. Oh, there we go. Thank you, John. Awesome. I so appreciate you posting the history of the formula language. So there you go. You can travel back in time. But that has that blog post goes into detail about it. Yeah, great question, Connor. All right, which is, let's see, this is from Ben. Can I use a Word template and fill it with Coda fields? And can I print it? Oh, this is interesting. Steve, what are your thoughts here? I have some thoughts, but before I weigh in, I'd love to know kind of how you think about the connection points here.
So it's a question around, can we bring a Word template into Coda as a Coda template? And then...
Yeah, or maybe having like Word and then pulling in with Coda. I think you could probably do that with the API, but that would be a little bit complicated. I have some thoughts. So here, Steve, while you gather your thoughts, let me share what I think. And then you can be like, Maria, that's patently incorrect. Go home. You're fired. You can say that. So
like
my recommendation here, and I will say this, I am biased. I work at Coda. I nerd out on Coda on the daily. So my recommendation would be to take a look at your Word template, copy and paste it, put it into a Coda doc, then save that as a template. Because then what you can do is you can be using Coda to populate all of that, all the text. You can even use formulas, right? Maybe you have a database of clients. This is something I use. I have an invoice generator. So I've created a invoice template, and then I've included fields that are populated by formulas. And then I just select which customer I'm working with, and it automatically populates into the invoice. And then I can print it as a PDF or save it as a PDF. So my recommendation would be to switch it over into Coda as a Coda template. That would be, in this case, the easiest way. There's not a lot of coding. You could just copy and paste. And that would be my recommendation. Steve, any other thoughts or corrections on my part?
No, I think that sounds great. And I think a few months back, we've revamped our printing capability inside the doc as well. So could be a nice way to make use of it.
Yeah, I actually really love my invoice generator because I've got the header image, and then, oh my goodness, look at my hair. Just so excited about Coda that I'm starting to like, ping. But I've got my header image, I have the icon, I've got the font looking really great, and it just prints in this really beautiful way. So that would be my recommendation here. Yeah, so what you could do is you could select all the text from your Word template, copy it, paste it into a Coda doc, and then save it as a new Coda template. And then anytime you're making a new Coda doc, you could use that as a starting off point. That would be my recommendation. Yeah. Because you could do stuff with API and all that, but like, nobody's got time for that, right? All right, here we go. We've got, is there a template where teams can input info that feeds into an executive one-pager? Ooh, so my recommendation here would be to, there's two ways you can do this. The first way is to have one doc with 2 pages in it. One page being the sort of full update where everybody can be putting everything in. And then another page that is a view of that bigger chunk of data filtered with just the things that the executives need. And I believe that there's a template out on the template gallery done by _VC that goes into this. But that would be my first recommendation, right? You can filter all of your data into just one thing. So for example, if you've got a bunch of sales that are coming through and the executive team just wants to know what's the total sales that every person has done, you could have the one big table where everyone's adding their sales. And then you could go ahead and create another page and just do a filter of Maria. How many does Maria do? This is her sum. Here is the sum for Steve. Here's the sum for John. Here's the sum for Shashir, and then have it on one page. Then what you could do is you could just have the executives just go to that one page, or you could even add a little button that sends an email to them every week with just the information on that page. So that would be my recommendation. It's the easiest way to do it because you just have 2 pages and you're making a view. You could, if you for some reason don't want the executives to have access to all of the minutia data, you could have 2 docs and just crosstalk in like a filtered view for the executives. But in many ways, I find that giving the executives like a dashboard and then allowing them to go deeper is a really great step. Thoughts on that, Steve? Does that feel correct? Any other things that I might be missing?
Yeah, I would approach it exactly like you mentioned. In case this is a scenario where you want the executive to have all the data, but maybe each team putting in the input to not be aware of what other folks are putting in, I think forms could be a way to utilize as well.
Yeah.
So you can create a doc with a form where each person can fill in a set of information that the executive is looking for, and the executive who owns the doc with the form will be able to get all of the data in a single view.
Totally. I'm going to just go ahead and just show how to do that. Type /form, and then you can decide. You can go ahead and just edit this form as far as what you want. So maybe this is like your name. This is the date, and this is the amount. And then you can change these different columns. So maybe the amount should be currency. You could go ahead and change the column type and say, hey, I want it to be some currency here. And then the date, you could say, all right, this is actually a date field, right? So we go to change the column type, date, here we go. And then the name could be there. So now everyone can just come here and be like, oh yeah, this is Maria. Today is the 12th. Oh, it's my niece's birthday. And I sold $7 bajillion. I'm such a good salesperson. And then I can choose submit. And now it's all here. Then what we could do is we could say for the executives, maybe I want to make a new page. Let's call this page. We'll say this is the executive dashboard. And I could say Maria has sold, Steve has sold. And I could do this with a formula. So I could say equals the form results. That's the name of that. And then that's what that dot is about. Filter, where the name is equal to Maria. And then I want to take a look at the amount. And then I want to sum it. And then I could do the same thing filtering by Steve. So I could do it just with a formula, or I could go ahead and make a table that kind of filters off this as well. So that would be a definite way to take a look at that. Such a good idea. Cool. All right, let's see. Is it possible to see usage stats for my template like I can for published docs? Steve, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah. So like you've seen, what we've built in at the moment was just the number of copies. We wanted to share some signal of how your team is finding your template helpful. And something that we would love to add more insights on for our users. I think the nature of a template, there's a lot of overlap, but it might be slightly different from like a published doc. So, this is another area that we'd love to understand more. What types of analytics or signals that you'd find helpful as you're building templates for yourself or for the rest of your team.
Yeah, totally. I also like that there is a notification that's built in that lets you know when things are starting to be copied to let you know, hey, maybe it's a good time to turn this into a template. So you can kind of get that reverse signal as well, which I think is really cool. Let's see. Is it possible to push an update to a template that's already in use? Steve, this would be the sort of making an edit and unpublish. It wouldn't push to anything that's been copied currently, correct? Can you talk us through kind of the order of operations there?
Yeah, for sure. So you can always go into your template edit view and then edit the template, and that change will be reflected right away to whoever is using the template. So for quick changes, we suggest going in there, make the change and come out. For bigger changes, like Maria helped us walk through earlier on, You can unpublish and republish when things are ready.
Mhm.
The updates won't be pushed to the existing docs that were already copy paste off of the
Cool.
template.
Great. Again, it's that kind of the save as logic holds true there as well. Got it.
Mhm.
Excellent question, Connor. We've got another question, which is, can templates be added with buttons, like a button that's magically replaced by a template when pressed? Because many users prefer a button to just manually adding a template.
Mhm.
What are thoughts on connecting this to the button logic, Steve?
This is it's awesome seeing this brought up, Connor. Another idea that we've definitely talked about. I think the scenarios that we're thinking about was there might be like a team hub or wiki, and like the team might have a new project or new write up that needs to be added. So having like a button that automatically generates a new sub page or inserts in the right templates in there to get started sounds like a great idea. Another thing on our list, and we'll see how soon we can get to it.
Cool. I would say in the meantime, something that we've done for education internally is creating like a GIF or a GIF, depending on what your graphical interface dialect is, of the template to choose. So like a slash and then which template sometimes can be helpful. But yeah, this is, again, perfect data, exactly what we're looking for to understand, like, what does it actually look like on the ground when y'all are using it, right? Totally. Cool. All right. It looks like lots of folks are like, yes, meetings, buttons, please do it.
See a lot of folks.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. The other thing that you could do, I'm just kind of thinking about like a workaround here, is you could have a page inside of a doc that is like the template page, and then have a button to duplicate that page. And you could push that button on a weekly basis, or for those of you who were in our Getting Started with Coda and Zapier last week, you could have a Zap that goes ahead and like creates a duplication of that page every time you have a new calendar invite that gets added. So that could be kind of a workaround in the meantime, having a button that duplicates a page that has your template on it. So it's not necessarily using the templates engine, but could give you a similar feel. So that's just something we can think about there. Can we share our beautiful, just created custom templates with the community? There are so many ways that you can do this, Vina. First of all, I'm super excited for you. I always want to know what people are making because I'm nosy and excited for everybody. So what you can do is you can always publish a doc. And let me actually share my screen so we can have this as a detail. La, 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 going to share it. I've been singing a lot in webinars lately, Steve. I don't know what that says about me.
Love it.
But it does, it happens. So maybe I want to publish this awesome thing that Steve and I are doing. I could go over here to share. And instead of publishing this as a template, what I could do is I could actually publish it to the gallery. So I could go ahead and choose whether it's discoverable. I can choose what kind of interactions I want people to have, and then be able to move through. And then it would show up on coda.io/gallery, right? And for example, you could be like, I wonder what that cool person, Maria Marquis, is publishing. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and click, and then here it is, all the stuff that I've published, right? So that's one thing. If you want to go in the community, my recommendation then is to just publish your doc, then grab that link right here, and then add it on the community. You can also embed it. We also have a doc show and tell area on the community. So that's a great place to go ahead and pop in all that information. Yeah, excellent. All right, our last question that's here right now, but please y'all keep them coming, is this is not necessarily just template related, but related to all docs. Are there plans to allow controls to adjust page breaks in print or PDF, especially when printing a doc with larger tables, text can get cut off? So my first thought here is to make sure that you've done it recently, because in the last, I want to say like 2 months or something, Steve, we've improved that print experience. So that'd be the first thing, double check. Then if not, what I would recommend is, let's see, what would I recommend? That's an important thing for me to think about first. Yeah, because we don't have this sort of text control, but I think this is a really interesting idea as far as like formatting. There is the ability to put in like line separators, but that's more visual, not like a formal page break. But yeah, I might just sort of check And you could always pop text into a table. That's a thought as well. Steve, what are your thoughts on this? I really don't have anything valuable to offer now that I realized I started talking before I had something valuable.
I feel like I'm not the best person to answer this.
Yeah.
Given I know the team's looking into this, Matthew and the folks. But,
yes, one of our engineers, Matthew, his partner is a copy editor, and so they have been very, very adamant around, hey, Matthew, make printing better, because that's her profession. So definitely something I think is pretty fun. All right. Let's see. If I do have a mistake in one of the templates that has been heavily copied, what's the recommended way to fix it in all places? My thought here is just let people know and maybe create like a mini template, right? One that can be drag and dropped in. That would be a thought. Steve, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, something that I've been experimenting with as like a workaround that might be relevant here is whenever I create a template, I would add a link in there or like a form link in there to get feedback back from anyone, and that might partially solve for what you're looking for. But I think reaching out directly to your team and who might be working on this or working off of it, I think seems like the best bet.
One thing I love about what you just said, Steve, is that just because you publish a template, that doesn't necessarily mean like, great, I'm done, I'll never touch it. I think a really helpful thing to include in all of our processes is getting feedback from our users, right? Our colleagues, our customers, people who are using it, right? And I love this idea of, hey, here's a little template to just let me know, here's a form, let me know how this is working for you. And you can always be adjusting and changing, right? Go live with like the minimum viable version of your template. And then you can always be adding as people engage, because really that's when you discover what work really looks like, what the ritual really is once it's in the hands of folks. So definitely want to just like underscore that we can put our little product manager, designer hats on with our Coda docs that we're building. All right, let's see. Excellent. So we've got printing still exists for the table text. Okay, well, this is something that we will take to our DocX folks, which is Doc Experience, and make sure that they're aware that there's still some gaps there, because I know this is something everyone is thinking about as well. All right, excellent. Looks like we have another question, which is, this is related to templates as well as docs. Can we design/use multiple columns in a page, like without using a table? Ooh, I love that you're talking about multi-column, because my partner actually works at Coda, and he's working on this right now. So I could go upstairs and heckle him. But this is something that we are actively working on, actively engineering. And really the key here is we want to make sure that we don't damage our performance in launching this. So it is a really big refactoring of the code base in a lot of ways. And we want to make sure that we're not adding just a bunch of extra glut and extra stuff, because we want to make sure that Coda stays fast, if not getting faster. So there's a big undertaking going on, and it's something that we're hoping to make available in the near future, but it's a big update. So I'm glad to say again, Pete, yes, it is coming. All right. Excellent. Perfect. And Ro, please let us know if that is about the webinar, because we're always happy to take sort of details there around how we can make these things better as well. So definitely want to make sure that we have that keep going. So folks, please do keep those questions coming. Let us know what's going on there as far as anything else that's on your mind. While we wait for more questions to come through, Steve, I just want to ask you a couple questions about this particular launch, which is, how did the idea for this feature arise? Kind of what is its origin story?
Great question. So we've been thinking a lot about teams and how can we enable teams to do more while doing less. And I think this idea has always been something that people talked about. But I think we put in more tangible motion to it maybe last summer. That's when we first started talking about this more concretely. And we started it out with this goal: let's help our users be more productive by enabling, I think, what we call tribal knowledge or shared knowledge that exists, and then helping people make reusable patterns into actionable building blocks. And I think to a lot of the points that we were talking about earlier, everyone has their unique way of working. So I know we always knew that like templates would be great starters, but
Yeah.
what would be most relevant and what would be evolving over time would be different. And we wanted to help do more there to build that into the products.
Yeah, because if I think about it, I want to say like 2 years ago is when we launched drag and drop examples, is what they were called, right? And that's kind of the first step. And then now, kind of taking it to its natural conclusion, I think it's when we think about how can we make it bigger and not just here's an example to get started, but like how do you actually make it for yourself instead of something that was our best guess. What's your favorite part of the feature, Steve?
Ooh,
I know, tough question.
that is tough. I think maybe not a particular feature per se, but one way I see custom templates is now users have your own way of creating shortcuts.
Yeah.
Within the product, and in any product, as you get more comfortable and as you become more of a power user, shortcuts go a long way. You see that with keyboard shortcuts. You see that with hopefully you start seeing that with custom templates as well. But I think that excites me the most as a whole.
Yeah, and it's one of those where when you have a flow, and this is something I found, you start to just kind of get into your habit and realize, oh wow, I've just been doing this inefficiently. And that now I found is like, oh, this could be a template. Oh, this can be a template. This can be a template. Because you just start to get used to things working in that way. I love this. We've got sort of a comment here from Ben, which is, I noticed sometimes speed in Coda is slow when scrolling. So the interesting thing about what's happening with our performance work, we actually have a whole set of engineers that are just assigned to increasing code performance speed. And what we found is that there's not like one thing that you change and then all of a sudden performance is better. But this group of engineers is like looking at the entire code base and finding like where are all of those little moments of slowness and reevaluating and sort of re-looking at the code base that's been around for years. It's kind of like going through an archaeological dig, like, oh, that way that we used to do it in the Bronze Age, maybe we want to make some shifts and changes, and oh, we can do this. And we're noticing it's these like slow increments over time. So while you won't necessarily see like today, all of a sudden it's this much faster, it is something that we are consistently chipping away at and wanting to move forward. And it's something that is a high priority that we consider performance to be a feature. And we want to make sure we're working through that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Ooh, great question. I came in late, so I apologize if I missed this. No worries. We're all coming from other parts of our day. Don't even worry about it, Pete. Is there a way going forward to monetize templates with a thought in mind of offering Coda consulting services? Steve, you want to chat about this? Kind of how you're thinking about that?
I think that's a great point. And I think in spirit, I think with both the template and the doc gallery, we want folks to be able to share their insights, their expertise, and in a way, open source or be able to spread it with the community and the world. I think this is definitely an interesting opportunity and interesting idea as well, and something that we'll keep in mind and take into account as we continue building this.
Yeah, and what I will say, Pete, is that allowing people to monetize their expertise is something that is really important to our CEO, Shashir. It's very near and dear to his heart because he truly believes in people being sort of paid for their work and paid for their expertise. So it's something that is very top of mind internally at the highest levels of the organization as well. Yeah, great question. Steve, as we're waiting for a couple more questions to come in our final 5 minutes here together, how have you been using templates on your team?
So we've been using it. I think the template that's been, I think, more or less like around idea feedback and whatnot that I've been finding very useful is we have a number of data and experiment driven templates that we use internally. So we do a lot of exploration and also seeing which ideas stick best for our users through A/B testing. And one of my favorite templates that got created since we started beta testing this is like a Sig Calculator
Oh, cool.
template. So what that allows us to do is, depending on our A/B testing, and we can just plug in a number of things like, okay, this is our control size, this is our treatment size. These are the numbers that we're seeing, and that it kind of tells us, okay, now there is statistically significant improvement to the new design that we're just A/B testing, so that it's now ready to go deploy to all of our users. So I think that's probably the one that I geek out the most. I think that was built by actually another colleague who's worked on custom templates, Jeremy.
Oh, yeah.
And been loving that template and use it quite so often.
Yeah, and one thing I like about that template, because I've seen it when y'all have presented findings, is it's quite simple, right? It's just a couple columns with some conditional formatting and a formula behind it. And it's one of those where you look at it, you're like, oh, you could make that over and over again. But like, why start from scratch if you can just pop it in and be able to just enter those results, which I think is really, really valuable. So I'm a big fan of small but mighty templates. Ooh, great question, Karina. Will there be Coda certified experts at some point? Great question. This is something I'm currently working on, is our Coda Bootcamp, which is something that's going to be allowing folks to take their skills to the next level. And we do want to have some kind of visual symbol, probably in a gallery, and also something folks can take with them. Something I feel really strongly about is making sure that we get away from, one of our values at Coda is right over familiar. So we want to make sure we don't just do the familiar thing that's always been done, but that we do the right thing. So I'm kind of reimagining what it could look like. So it's not kind of a stale, boring tech certification, but something that's a little bit more dynamic, a little more community driven, and also something that's open to anyone who's curious about learning more. Yeah, great question, Karina. All right. So we've got about 3 more minutes. If anybody has any other questions for Steve, this is your time. I would love to know, Steve, were there any surprises during the development of this feature? Anything that you didn't expect, or things that were kind of interesting in the moment? Anything that took you and the team by surprise?
Let's see. I think so. I don't know how many of the folks on the call today have been part of the beta program from the very beginning. But when we first started out the beta program, we started out with only templates being available when you're creating a new doc. So they actually weren't available from the slash menu from the drag and drop menu. Right. And I think we always knew that piece would be important, but I think, again, hearing from the community and hearing from our beta testers, it surprised us how much more it was more important to their workflow than we first imagined. So that actually encouraged us to take a bit more time, build out the scope so that it's available both inside and outside the doc, and then get to this point in time today.
Yeah. And what would you say the biggest learning that you and the team had during the building of this process and the building of this feature was?
Yeah, I think probably the piece that's been most insightful in a number of different ways is, again, every team's different, and actually seeing what types of teams that are using Coda, from very small to very large enterprises. That's been very eye-opening and insightful as we iterated on getting to this point. And yeah, I think this feature's been out for maybe 3-4 days out now, and we have all our eyes open to start learning and iterating more.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that's the thing that I really love about being able to chat with all of you makers, is that there's so much diversity of what we all do, right? That there are some of us who are small business owners. There are some of us who are part of giant companies. There are some of us who are artists. There are some of us who are entrepreneurs. And there's so many different ways that people are using this tool. And I just find it to be super inspiring just to understand like the wide variety of how we can all solve those problems in this way. Yeah. Hey, thanks, Connor. I really appreciate that. And BC, this is the kind of math I can get behind. Yeah.
Great formula.
So we've got about 60 seconds, so we could probably take one more question if there's anything else on your mind. In the meantime, though, I want to make sure that everybody knows how they can learn more. So we do have help documentation about this feature. When you go and use it in Coda itself, you can do those see how buttons. We also have the community.coda.io. And if you want to come and hang out with us more often, you can go to coda.io/webinars. We host webinars every single week, alternating between getting better at formulas, to seeing use cases and rituals in action, to things like this, where we do a retrospective on a feature. So we always love to hear from folks, and it's been a true pleasure and a privilege to be able to be here with your most precious resource. You've given us your most precious resource, which is your time. And we take that very seriously. We're so glad you came and hung out. We hope you got a few things that you can take with you. I also want to give my sincere thanks, standing ovation, round of applause to Steve. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit down, share with us how this feature was built, how it works, giving us your expertise and your empathy. It's always a pleasure being able to hang out with you, spend some time. So thank you all so much. So glad to have you all with us. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have fun with this feature and brag about the templates that you've created in our community. We cannot wait to hear about what you're doing, and we cannot wait to see what you coda. All right, y'all, take care. We'll see you later. See you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your week.